The Cravoth ships moved through space like giant shadows. Their black hulls swallowed light. For 20 years, these ships had brought fear to every corner of the galaxy. 17 different alien races had fallen to them. Some tried to fight back. All of them failed. The Cravoth took what they wanted. They stripped planets of resources. They took people as slaves. No one could stop them. No one dared to try anymore. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Commander Elise Wright studied the latest reports. Her brown eyes moved quickly across the screen. The data was troubling. The Cravoth fleet was moving toward the Arcturus corridor. The last empty space between human territory and the alien empire. They're getting closer, she said quietly. Lieutenant Frank Powell stood at her side. He was tall with broad shoulders and short red hair. His face showed the same worry that Wright felt. "How much time do we have?" he asked. Wright checked the calculations. 3 days, maybe 4. They've already destroyed the outer sensor stations. Powell frowned. They've never met humans before. No, Wright agreed, and that might be our only advantage. The Defiance was humanity's newest and most powerful ship. From the outside, it looked ordinary. There was nothing to show the incredible weapons hidden inside its hull. The ship carried the experimental sunflare cannon, a weapon designed to harness the power of a star. It had never been used in real combat. Wright touched a button on her chair. "Officer Martinez, status report." Peter Martinez's voice came through the speaker. "All systems are green, Commander. Weapons are at full capacity. The sunflare cannon is stable." "Good, keep it that way." Wright stood up and walked to the large window at the front of the bridge. Earth was visible in the distance, a blue and green jewel floating in the darkness. 7 billion people lived on that planet. 7 billion people who didn't know how close danger was. The door to the bridge opened and Admiral Greg Morgan entered. Everyone stood at attention. Morgan was a legend in the United Earth Defense Force. He had gray hair and a face lined with experience. "At ease," he said. Wright turned to face him. "Admiral, we were just reviewing the latest intelligence." Morgan nodded. "I've seen it. The situation is worse than we expected. The Cravoth have accelerated their timeline." He walked to the central display and brought up a map of the sector. Red dots showed the positions of known Cravoth ships. There were many of them. "The mining colony on Arcturus 4 has gone silent," Morgan said. "We believe it's already been hit." Wright felt her stomach tighten. "Casualties?" "Unknown. But the colony had over 5,000 people." The bridge was silent as everyone absorbed this news. Morgan continued. "The Defense Council has made its decision. We can't wait for the Cravoth to reach our main colonies. We need to show them that humans aren't easy prey." "Sir," Powell spoke up, "the Defiance is just one ship. The reports say the Cravoth fleet has dozens." Morgan's eyes were hard. "One ship is all we can spare right now. The rest of the fleet is protecting our core worlds." He turned to Wright. "Commander, your orders are to take the Defiance to the edge of Cravoth territory. Make contact, show them what we can do." Wright understood what wasn't being said. This was a desperate move. If the Defiance failed, Earth would have no choice but to try to negotiate with the Cravoth. And from what they knew, the aliens didn't negotiate. They only conquered. "And if they don't back down?" Wright asked. Morgan's face was grim. "Then make them pay so dearly that they think twice before attacking human space." "Yes, sir." Morgan looked around at the bridge crew. "I won't lie to you. This mission is dangerous. We don't know if the sunflare cannon will work as designed. We don't know if our shields can withstand their weapons. What we do know is that 17 other species have fallen to the Cravoth. Humanity will not be the 18th. He nodded to Wright. "The Defiance leaves in 6 hours. Good luck, Commander." After the Admiral left, Wright called a meeting of her senior officers in the ship's conference room. Around the table sat the people she trusted most in the universe. Lieutenant Powell, her second-in-command, was reviewing tactical data. Communications Officer Allison Carter was a young woman with blonde hair and sharp blue eyes. Next to her was Weapons Officer Peter Martinez, whose dark eyes showed both excitement and fear at the thought of using the sunflare cannon in actual combat. Chief Engineer Sam Wilson had grease on his uniform from working on the engines right up until the meeting. "I won't sugarcoat this," Wright told them. "We're being sent on what might be a suicide mission." No one spoke. They had all heard the rumors. "But," she continued, "if anyone can pull this off, it's this crew and this ship." She activated the display in the center of the table showing the latest scans of Cravoth warships. "Their ships are bigger than ours. Their conventional weapons are probably stronger. But they've never faced human ingenuity. They've never seen anything like the sunflare cannon." Martinez leaned forward. "The cannon is ready, Commander. The simulations show it can cut through just about anything." "Simulations are one thing," Wright said. "Real combat is another." Powell pointed to the alien ship design. "Their vessels rely heavily on energy shields. If the sunflare works as designed, it should bypass those shields completely." Chief Wilson cleared his throat. "The engines are at 110% efficiency. I've tuned them myself. We'll be faster than anything the Cravoth have seen." Wright nodded. "We'll need every advantage." She looked at each of them in turn. "I want everyone at their best. This isn't just another mission. The future of our species might depend on what we do in the next few days." As the meeting ended, Wright asked Powell to stay behind. "Frank, I need your honest assessment. Do we have a chance?" Powell was silent for a moment. "The Cravoth have never lost a battle that we know of. They've conquered every species they've encountered." He paused. "But none of those species were human." Wright smiled slightly. "No, they weren't." 6 hours later, the UES Defiance left Earth orbit. Its powerful engines pushed it toward the jump point that would take it to the edge of Cravoth space. As the stars stretched into lines around them, Commander Wright made a silent promise to protect her home no matter the cost. The Defiance was one ship against an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for decades. But sometimes one ship was all it took to change history. Lieutenant Powell stood beside Wright as the ship entered the jump. "Do you think we'll make it back?" Wright watched as normal space disappeared, replaced by the swirling colors of the jump corridor. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "But I do know this. The Cravoth are about to learn a very important lesson about humanity." "What's that?" "We don't go down without a fight." The UES Defiance came out of the jump point near Arcturus IV. The ship slowed as it entered normal space again. On the bridge, Commander Wright leaned forward in her chair. "Scan the area," she ordered. Lieutenant Powell worked at his station. "Scanning now." The main screen showed the planet Arcturus IV. It looked peaceful from a distance. But as the scanner results came in, Powell's face grew dark. "Commander, I'm detecting debris in orbit. It matches the signature of the mining colony's structures." Wright felt a wave of sadness. "Any life signs?" "None, Commander. The colony is gone." Communications Officer Allison Carter spoke up from her station. "Commander, I'm picking up transmissions. They're not human." Wright straightened in her chair. "Put it on screen." The main screen changed to show 3 massive black ships. They were moving away from Arcturus IV. Each one was at least 5 times the size of the Defiance. "Cravoth warships," Powell said quietly. Wright nodded. 3 of them. Looks like they've just finished with the colony and are preparing to move on. "They haven't seen us yet," Carter said. "We're still at extreme range." Wright made her decision. "Move us closer but maintain stealth systems. I want to see what we're dealing with before we announce ourselves." The Defiance moved forward slowly, its advanced stealth systems making it nearly invisible to standard sensors. As they got closer, they could see more clearly what had happened at Arcturus IV. The orbital stations were destroyed. Pieces of metal and other debris formed a ring around the planet. There was no sign of survivors. "Weapons status?" Wright asked. Peter Martinez responded from the weapons console. "All conventional weapons ready. Sunflare cannon is at 70% charge and rising." "How long until it's fully charged?" 10 minutes, Commander." Wright nodded. "That's enough time. Let's get their attention." She turned to Carter. "Open a channel, broadcast on all frequencies." "Channel open." Wright stood up. Her voice was clear and strong. "This is Commander Elise Wright of the United Earth Defense Force ship Defiance. You have entered human territory and attacked our colony. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." For a moment, there was no response. Then the screen flickered and showed the interior of a Cravoth ship. A tall alien with gray skin and 4 yellow eyes stared at them. Its voice was translated by the ship's computer. "Human vessel, you are small and weak. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Wright smiled without humor. "I was about to make you the same offer." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "You have courage, but courage does not win battles. Power does. And we have more power than you can imagine. I think you'll find that humans are full of surprises." Wright cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "They've taken the bait. Now they'll come for us." Powell checked his scanner. "All 3. Ships are changing course. They're heading straight for us." Wright returned to her chair. "Battle stations. All crew to combat positions." Throughout the ship, alarm lights flashed. Crew members ran to their stations. In engineering, Chief Wilson and his team prepared for the coming fight. Martinez looked up from his console. "Sunflare cannon now at 85%. "Good," Wright said. "We need to keep them busy until it's ready. Prepare conventional weapons." The 3 Cravoth warships moved toward the Defiance like giant predators closing in on prey. The human ship seemed tiny in comparison. "They're powering up weapons," Powell reported. Wright nodded. "Evasive maneuvers. Don't make it easy for them." The Defiance suddenly changed direction, moving with a speed and agility that seemed impossible for a ship its size. The first shots from the Cravoth ships missed completely. "Return fire," Wright ordered. "Conventional weapons only. Let's see what their shields can handle." The Defiance fired a barrage of missiles and energy beams. They struck the lead Cravoth ship's shields, causing them to glow brightly. But when the glow faded, the shields were intact. "No effect," Martinez reported. The Cravoth fired again. This time, one of their energy beams grazed the Defiance. The ship shook. "Shield impact," Powell said. "Shields holding at 90%. Another hit came stronger this time. The lights on the bridge flickered. "Shields at 75%, Powell updated. Wright stayed calm. "Status of the Sunflare cannon?" 95% and climbing, Martinez answered. "Just a few more moments." The Defiance took another hit. This one was direct. The ship shuddered violently. "Shields at 50%, Powell shouted over the noise of alarms. Wright gripped her chair. "Keep us moving, don't let them get another clear shot." The Defiance twisted and turned, avoiding the worst of the Cravoth weapons. But the alien ships were closing in, surrounding them. "They're trying to box us in," Powell warned. Wright had expected this. "Chief Wilson, give us everything the engines have." Wilson's voice came through the comm. "Aye, Commander, you've got it all." The Defiance suddenly accelerated, shooting between 2 of the Cravoth ships. The maneuver surprised the aliens, giving the human ship some breathing room. "Sunflare cannon. Status?" Wright asked. Martinez smiled. 100% charged and ready, Commander." Wright looked at the main screen. The 3 Cravoth ships were regrouping, preparing for another attack. "Target the lead vessel," she ordered. "Let's show them what humans can do." Martinez entered the targeting commands. "Target locked." Wright took a deep breath. "Fire." For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a beam of blinding white light shot from the Defiance. It struck the lead Cravoth ship, bypassing its shields completely. The effect was immediate and devastating. The beam cut through the alien ship like it was made of paper. Secondary explosions erupted along its hull as systems failed. On the bridge of the Defiance, everyone watched in stunned silence as the massive Cravoth warship broke apart. "It worked," Martinez whispered. "It actually worked." The remaining 2 Cravoth ships stopped their advance. For the first time in their history of conquest, they had seen one of their own destroyed. Wright didn't give them time to recover. "Target. The second ship, fire when ready." Martinez worked quickly. "Target locked, firing." The Sunflare cannon fired again. The second Cravoth ship tried to evade, but it was too slow. The beam caught it along one side, tearing away a large section of its hull. The ship didn't explode, but it began to drift, clearly disabled. The third and final Cravoth ship started to turn away. "They're retreating," Powell said, not quite believing it. Wright stood up. "Let them go. Let them tell the others what happened here." The damaged Cravoth ship limped away, following a course that would take it back to its territory. The Defiance remained in position, its crew still processing what they had accomplished. Powell turned to Wright. "We did it. We actually beat them." Wright nodded slowly. "We won the battle, but the war is just beginning." The news of the battle spread quickly. The surviving Cravoth ship reached its home territory and told the others what had happened. For the first time in their history, the Cravoth had been defeated. One small human ship had destroyed one of their mighty warships and damaged another. On board the Defiance, Commander Wright called a meeting with her senior officers. The mood was mixed, pride in their victory but concern about what would come next. The Sunflare cannon exceeded expectations, Martinez reported, but it drained almost all of our power reserves. We need at least 12 hours to recharge to full capacity. Wright nodded. "That's our biggest weakness. If the Cravoth come back with more ships before we're ready, we'll be in trouble." Powell brought up a map on the screen. "We're still deep in what the Cravoth consider their territory. The nearest human outpost is 3 days away at top speed." Chief Wilson spoke up. "The engines took some damage in the battle. I can keep us moving, but we can't maintain top speed for long periods." Wright considered their options. "We need to find a place to hide while we make repairs and recharge. Somewhere the Cravoth won't think to look." Officer Carter raised her hand. "Commander, I've been monitoring communications since the battle. There's something interesting happening." "Go on," Wright said. "I'm picking up transmissions from planets in this sector. They're not Cravoth. They're from other species, and they're talking about us." This caught everyone's attention. "What are they saying?" Wright asked. Carter smiled slightly. "They're saying that the Cravoth have finally been beaten. Word is spreading fast. Some are calling the Defiance the Deliverer." Wright hadn't considered this possibility. The species conquered by the Cravoth had been watching. They had seen what the Defiance had done. "Can you locate the source of these transmissions?" she asked. Carter nodded. "The strongest signals are coming from a planet about 6 hours from here. It's called Novan." Wright made her decision. "Set course for Novan. We'll see if they're friendly. They'll be..." Defiance changed course and headed for Novan. As they approached the planet, they saw it was similar to Earth, with blue oceans and green land. But there were signs of damage, destroyed cities and large areas that looked burned. "The Cravoth were here," Powell said quietly. "Probably not too long ago." Carter reported, "I'm receiving a transmission from the surface. They're using a basic universal communication protocol." "Put it through," Wright ordered. A face appeared. On the screen, it was clearly alien, blue skin, large eyes, and a ridge of small horns on its head, but the emotion on its face was easy to read. "Hope." "Human vessel," the alien said in a voice that sounded musical. "I am Governor Zala of Novan. We witnessed your battle with the Cravoth. You are welcome here." Wright introduced herself and explained their situation. Governor Zala immediately offered them shelter and assistance. "The Cravoth destroyed much of our world 3 years ago," Zala explained. "They take our resources and our people every 6 months. They are due to return in 2 weeks." The Defiance landed near what remained of Novan's capital city. The crew was surprised by the welcome they received. Hundreds of Novans lined the streets, watching the humans with what could only be described as awe. Wright, Powell, and Carter met with Governor Zala and the Novan Council. They learned that the Novans had once been a peaceful, technologically advanced species before the Cravoth came. "They destroyed our ships, our defenses, everything that could pose a threat," Zala told them. "They force us to mine resources for them. Those who resist are taken away. We never see them again." "How many other species have they conquered?" Wright asked. 17 that we know of," Zala answered. "Some have been under their control for decades. We were one of the more recent. Powell asked. Have any ever successfully fought back? Zala shook his head. Never. Not until your ship came. While they talked, Chief Wilson and his team worked with Novan engineers to repair the Defiance. The Novans had managed to hide some of their technology from the Cravath, and they were eager to help. Wright learned that representatives from other conquered planets were already on their way to Novan. The news of the Defiance's victory had given them hope, and they wanted to meet the humans who had done the impossible. 3 days after arriving on Novan, Wright received an urgent message from Powell. Commander, long-range sensors have detected multiple Cravoth ships heading this way. At least 5 of them. Wright wasn't surprised. She had expected the Cravoth to retaliate. How long until they get here? 2 days at their current speed. Wright nodded. Then we have 2 days to prepare. She called a meeting with her crew and the Novan leaders. The Cravoth are coming, she told them. And they're bringing more ships than we can handle alone. Instead of panic, she saw determination on the Novan faces. We will fight with you, Governor Zala said. For 3 years we have been slaves. It is time to stand up. Other Novans nodded. In agreement. Wright was moved by their courage but concerned about their chances. The Cravoth ships are powerful. Even with the Sunflare cannon, the Defiance can only take out 1 or 2 before they overwhelm us. Zala smiled for the first time since they had met. Perhaps, but you're not alone anymore. He led Wright and her officers to a large cavern hidden in the mountains. Inside were 3 ships. They were smaller than the Defiance, but they were clearly warships. We built these in secret, Zala explained. We hid the parts from the Cravoth, assembled them. Here. They're not as powerful as your ship, but they can fight. Wright inspected the Novan ships. They were well built and had interesting weapon systems. These could definitely help, she said. But we'd still be outnumbered. There's more, Zala said. The other species are bringing ships too. Ships they've been hiding from the Cravoth. By tomorrow we'll have a fleet of 12. Powell looked skeptical. 12 ships against 5 Cravoth warships? Those are still tough odds. But not impossible, Wright said, especially if we work together. Over the next day, ships from other planets arrived at Novan. Each had been built in secret, hidden from their oppressors. Each represented the hope and determination of a conquered people. Wright met with the captains of these ships. They were different species with different languages and customs, but they all shared one thing, the desire to be free from the Cravoth. Together, they made a plan. The Defiance would lead the attack, using its Sunflare cannon to target the largest Cravoth ship. The other ships would focus on the remaining enemy vessels. As they finished their planning, a young Novan ran into the room. "More ships approaching," he shouted. For a moment, everyone feared the Cravoth had arrived early, but then the Novan smiled. "They're from Zelta and Koros, 3 more ships to join our fleet." Wright looked around at the gathered aliens. Just days ago, they had been conquered people with no hope. Now they stood tall, ready to fight for their freedom. "Tomorrow," she told them, "we show the Cravoth that the days of their terror are over." The day of battle arrived. 15 ships from 7 different species formed a defensive line around the planet Novan. The UES Defiance was in the center, flanked by the 3 Novan ships and vessels from other worlds. It was a small fleet compared to what the Cravoth could bring, but each ship carried crew members who were fighting for their freedom. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Wright watched the long-range scanner. 5 large dots were moving toward them, the Cravoth warships. "All ships report ready, Commander," Officer Carter said from her station. Wright nodded. "Open a channel to the fleet." When all ships were connected, Wright spoke clearly. "This is Commander Wright. Today we face an enemy that has terrorized the galaxy for too long. The Cravoth believe they cannot be defeated. We proved them wrong once. Today we do it again." She paused, looking at her own crew. "Many of you have lived under Cravoth rule. You've suffered. You've lost loved ones. Today we fight not just for victory but for justice, for freedom." Throughout the fleet, crews listened to her words. On some ships there were cheers. On others, solemn nods. The plan is simple, Wright continued. The Defiance will target the lead ship with our Sunflare cannon. When the Cravath break formation, and they will, each group will attack their assigned targets. Stay in your groups. Watch each other's backs. Together, we can win this. Lieutenant Powell reported, Cravath ships entering visual range. The main screen showed 5 massive black warships approaching. They were in a tight formation, clearly expecting to easily overwhelm the defenders. They still think we're weak, Powell said. Wright allowed herself a small smile. That's their mistake. Again. The Cravath ships came closer. Suddenly a transmission came through. The face of a Cravath commander appeared on screen. His 4 yellow eyes were filled with hatred. Human vessel, the alien said. You have interfered in Cravath business. You have damaged our ships. For this, your world will burn. Wright kept her voice calm. You've burned enough worlds. Today that ends. The Cravath commander made a sound of disgust. You hide behind slaves. It will not save you. Wright looked directly at the alien. They're not slaves anymore. They're allies. And together, we're going to show you what happens when you push free people too far. She cut the transmission and turned to Martinez. Sunflare cannon status? Fully charged and ready, Commander. Target the lead ship and fire when ready. The Defiance's Sunflare cannon activated. A beam of concentrated energy shot across space, striking the lead Cravath ship. The beam cut through the alien vessel's shields and tore into its hull, but, unlike their previous encounter, this Cravath ship didn't break apart. It was damaged but still operational. They've reinforced their hulls, Martinez reported. The Sunflare cannon damaged them but not enough to disable them. Wright had expected this. They've learned. Now it's our turn. All ships, attack pattern. Alpha. The Allied fleet broke formation, splitting into smaller groups as planned. 3 Novan ships targeted the damaged lead Cravath vessel. Ships from Zelta and Koros went after the second. The Defiance and remaining allies headed for the third. The space around Novan lit up with weapons fire. The Cravath had numbers and size on their side, but the Allied ships were faster and more maneuverable. On the Defiance, Wright directed the battle. Martinez, start recharging the Sunflare. Powell, keep us moving. Don't let them get a lock on us. The ship shook as it took a hit. Shields at 80%, Powell reported. The Defiance returned fire, its conventional weapons striking the Cravath ship. Other Allied vessels attacked from different angles, confusing the larger ship's targeting systems. Throughout the battle, Wright stayed in contact with the other ship captains. Group 2, watch your flank. Group 3, target their weapon systems. The battle was chaotic, but the plan was working. By attacking in groups, the smaller ships could concentrate their fire on specific areas of the Cravath vessels. After 20 minutes of intense fighting, the lead Cravath ship, already damaged by the Sunflare cannon, exploded in a bright flash. The Novan ships had targeted its power core. A cheer went up throughout the Allied fleet. 1 down, 4 to go. But the celebration was short-lived. 2 more Cravath warships appeared on the long-range scanner. Reinforcements, Powell said grimly. Wright assessed the situation quickly. The Allied fleet had taken damage. 3 smaller ships had been destroyed. The others were still fighting, but their resources were stretched thin. We need to end this quickly, she decided. Martinez, status of the Sunflare. 80% charged. 5 more minutes until full power. Wright made a decision. We can't wait. Target the command ship of the second group. Fire at current charge. The Sunflare cannon fired again. At less than full power, it couldn't cut through the Cravath ship completely, but it did enough damage to disable its main weapons. The Allied ships pressed their attack, focusing on the damaged vessels. Another Cravath ship exploded, then another. But the reinforcements were getting closer, and the Allied fleet was taking heavy damage. A Novan ship exploded near the Defiance. The human vessel was hit by debris, causing its shields to flicker. Shields critical, Powell shouted. 1 more direct hit and we're done. Wright knew they couldn't win a prolonged battle. They needed something else. An idea came to her. Carter, open a channel to Governor Zala's ship. When the connection was made, Wright spoke urgently. Governor, do you remember the mining tunnels you showed us? The ones that run deep under Noven's surface? Zala seemed confused, but answered, yes, they extend for thousands of miles through the planet's crust. And they're filled with unstable gas pockets, correct? Understanding dawned on Zala's face. Yes. Very unstable. It's why we have to be careful when mining. Can you send me the exact coordinates of the largest pocket? Zala did so immediately. Wright turned to Martinez. Target these coordinates, full power to the sunflare cannon. Martinez looked uncertain. Commander, that's the planet's surface. Trust me. Fire when ready. The sunflare cannon fired for the third time, but instead of targeting a Cravath ship, it struck a specific area on Noven's surface. The beam drilled deep into the planet's crust, reaching the gas pocket Zala had identified. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a massive explosion erupted from the planet's surface. A cloud of gas and debris shot into space, directly into the path of the approaching Cravath reinforcements. The cloud wasn't just debris. It contained highly reactive gases from deep within Novan. When the Cravath ships hit it, their energy shields created a reaction. The gases ignited, surrounding the new arrivals in a ball of fire. When the flames cleared, one Cravath ship was drifting, clearly disabled. The other was damaged, but still moving. The remaining original Cravath ships saw this and began to retreat. They had lost 3 of their own, with 2 more heavily damaged. It was a defeat unlike anything they had ever experienced. As the Cravath fled, cheers erupted throughout the Allied fleet. For the first time in decades, the oppressors had been driven back. 2 weeks after the battle, representatives from all 7 Allied species gathered on Novan. They met in a large hall that had been rebuilt from the ruins of the old government building. At the center of the hall was a round table with 7 equal seats. Commander Wright entered the hall wearing her formal uniform. The room fell silent as she walked to her place at the table. Powell stood behind her along with Carter and Martinez. They had all earned their place at this historic meeting. Governor Zala opened the proceedings. Friends, allies, fellow survivors of Cravath oppression, we gather today to celebrate a victory many thought impossible. Around the table, the representatives nodded. Some still bore injuries from the battle. All carried the memories of years under Cravath rule. But more importantly, Zala continued, we gather to ensure this victory is not our last. The Cravath have retreated, but they will return. They have never accepted defeat before. They will not start now. A representative from Koros spoke up. His species had reptilian features and spoke with a slight hiss. We lost 2 ships in the battle. We cannot withstand another attack like the last one. Others murmured in agreement. Despite their victory, the cost had been high. 5 Allied ships destroyed, hundreds of lives lost. Wright stood. You're right. None of us can withstand another attack alone, but we didn't fight alone. We fought together, and together we won. She looked around the table. My ship, the Defiance, came here to show the Cravath that humans would not fall easily. What we found instead was something far more powerful than one ship or one species could ever be. We found unity. The room was silent as Wright continued. The Cravath conquered 17 species because they attacked each one separately. They made sure you couldn't help each other. They made sure you felt alone, the representatives nodded. This had been the Cravath strategy, isolate then conquer. But now they've made a mistake, Wright said. They've given us a common enemy, a reason to stand together. She placed a data device on the table. It projected a map of the sector, showing Cravath territory and the positions of their major fleets. Before I left Earth, I was given one mission: show the Cravath that humans would fight. That mission is complete. Now I propose a new one. Show the Cravath that they can be defeated, not just in one battle, but completely. Some representatives looked shocked. Others leaned forward with interest. You want us to take the fight to them? Asked a representative from Zelta, whose blue skin gleamed in the light. Wright nodded. I want us to end the threat forever. Not through destruction, but through liberation. There are 15 other species still under Kravoth control. We can free them. Governor Zala looked thoughtful. The task seems impossible. The Kravoth homeworld is heavily defended. Their main fleet has hundreds of ships. It does seem impossible. Wright agreed. Just like it seemed impossible that one human ship could defeat a Kravoth warship. Just like it seemed impossible that 7 oppressed species could drive off a Kravoth attack force. She smiled. Doing the impossible seems to be our specialty. Powell stepped forward and adjusted the map display. We've analyzed the data from our battles. The Kravoth have numbers and size, but their tactics are predictable. They've never needed to be creative because they've never lost before. Martinez added, and their technology, while powerful, hasn't evolved much. They haven't needed to improve because no one could challenge them. Wright continued, until now. Between human technology and the knowledge each of your species brings, we can build better ships, we can develop new weapons, we can train fighters who know how to exploit Kravoth weaknesses. The representative from Koros hissed softly. How long would this take? The Kravoth will not give us years to prepare. We don't need years, Wright said. We need months. 6 at most. She pointed to a section of the map. The Kravoth are already pulling ships from these outer regions to reinforce their core worlds. They're afraid. For the first time, they feel threatened. Carter spoke up for the first time. We've been monitoring their communications. They're in disarray. Some of their commanders want to attack immediately. Others want to build up their forces first. They're arguing among themselves. Division in the ranks, Wright said. Another weakness we can exploit. Governor Zala stood and walked around the table looking at each representative. I have lived under Kravoth rule. I have seen my people suffer. If there is even a small chance to end that suffering for others, I believe, we must take it. One by one, the other representatives voiced their agreement. Some were hesitant, others enthusiastic. But all understood that this might be their only chance to truly win their freedom. Then it is decided, Zala said. We will form an alliance. We will build a fleet. We will take the fight to the Kravoth. He turned to Wright. And we ask that you, Commander, lead this alliance. You brought us hope when we had none. You showed us victory was possible. Wright looked at her officers. Powell nodded slightly. Carter smiled. Martinez gave her a thumbs up. I would be honored, Wright said. But I can't do it alone. I'll need to contact Earth to bring more human ships. We'll need everything each species can offer. You will have it, Zala promised. All of it. The meeting continued late into the night as they made plans. Ships would be built in hidden facilities throughout the sector. Training would begin immediately. Intelligence would be gathered on Kravoth movements and defenses. As the meeting ended, Wright stepped outside and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kravoth were preparing for their next move. But for the first time, they would be facing an enemy they didn't understand. An alliance of determined species led by humans. Lieutenant Powell joined her outside. Do you think we can really do this, Commander? Defeat the entire Kravoth Dominion? Wright watched a shooting star streak across the sky. 6 months ago, no one believed a lone human battleship could stand against a Kravoth warship. Now we've destroyed 5 of them. She turned to Powell with determination in her eyes. The Kravoth have terrorized this galaxy for too long. They believed no one could stand against them. We proved them wrong. And now? Powell asked. Now we're going to free the galaxy, Wright said. 1 planet at a time. Above them, the stars seemed to shine brighter than before. For the first time in decades, they didn't represent distant places of fear and oppression. They represented hope, freedom, a future where no species would need to live in terror of the Kravoth. It had all started with one ship, the UES Defiance, a lone human battleship that had changed the course of galactic history forever. Captain Alan Wright stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Horizon, staring at the readout on his screen. His heart beat faster as he studied the signal again. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Dr. Bennett, take a look at this, he called to the ship's science officer. Dr. Susan Bennett moved to his side and frowned at the data. This isn't from any of our probes. The signal is coming from beyond Pluto's orbit. Alan nodded. That's what I thought. We need to report this to Earth right away. The year was 2087. Humanity had just begun to spread beyond Earth. There were 3 small colonies on Mars and mining operations throughout the asteroid belt. The Horizon was one of 5 deep space vessels tasked with exploring the outer solar system. The message took 14 minutes to reach Earth. 6 hours later, every telescope in the solar system turned toward the source of the strange signal. What? They saw changed humanity forever. Massive ships, each one larger than the biggest cities on Earth, appeared at the edge of the solar system. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with strange lights. There were 7 of them. On Earth, President Kelly Morgan received the news in the White House emergency bunker. The room was filled with military leaders, scientists, and government officials. Everyone looked scared. What do we know about them? President Morgan asked. General Ben Harris shook his head. Very little, Madam President. They're not responding to any of our signals. Their technology is far beyond anything we have. They're heading straight for Earth, added Space Force Commander Ellie Matthews. At their current speed, they'll reach us in 3 days. The world held its breath as the alien ships approached. Panic spread through major cities. Religious leaders called for calm. Military forces went on high alert, though everyone knew thereby weapons would be useless against visitors who could cross the stars. On the 3rd day, the alien ships entered Earth orbit. They positioned themselves above major cities: New York, Beijing, Moscow, London, New Delhi, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo. Then they sent a message. The transmission appeared on every screen on Earth at once. It showed a tall, thin being with gray-blue skin and forearms. Its face had no nose, just breathing slits, and its 6 eyes blinked in an unsettling pattern. People of Earth, it spoke in perfect English. I am Admiral Kresh of the Zelleran Empire. Our civilization spans 300 worlds across this arm of the galaxy. We have watched your development with growing concern. The alien paused, its eyes blinking rapidly. Your species shows dangerous potential. You are aggressive, resourceful, and expanding quickly. The Empire cannot allow unchecked threats on its borders. Therefore, we offer you a choice. Admiral Kresh's voice grew colder. Surrender now and become a protected territory of the Empire. Your resources will serve our needs, but your people will live. Refuse, and we will remove your species entirely. The transmission ended with these words. You have 30 Earth days to decide. Any hostile action will result in immediate punishment. Within hours, the United Nations called an emergency meeting. Leaders from every nation gathered in New York, beneath the shadow of one of the alien ships. President Morgan addressed the assembly. We face an impossible choice: fight and die, or surrender and live as slaves. The Russian president suggested immediate surrender. We cannot win against such power. At least our children will survive. The Chinese leader disagreed. Perhaps we can negotiate better terms. As the debate continued, Dr. Frank Collins sat quietly in the back of the room. He was the lead scientist at the Global Research Initiative, where his team had been studying strange materials found in Antarctica 3 years earlier, materials that were not from Earth. Finally, he stood up. Madam President, distinguished leaders, I may have another option. The room fell silent. For the past 3 years, my team has been reverse engineering technology that we now believe came from a crashed alien scout ship. We've made significant progress on understanding their propulsion systems and energy weapons. Excited whispers filled the room. We aren't ready to fight them yet, Dr. Collins continued. But if we can buy time, perhaps 3 months instead of 1, we might develop weapons that could at least hurt them. President Morgan leaned forward. What do you need, Doctor? Every brilliant mind on the planet, every resource we can spare, and most importantly, a way to stall the Zellerans while we prepare. The assembly voted unanimously. Earth would appear to negotiate while secretly preparing for war. Ambassador Diane Peterson was chosen to communicate with Admiral Kresh. She was respected, intelligent, and most importantly, calm under pressure. Her first meeting took place aboard the Zelleran flagship. She was escorted by 2 guards into a massive chamber where Admiral Kresh waited. "Your leaders are wise to open talks," the alien said. "The Empire is generous to those who serve willingly." Ambassador Peterson bowed slightly. "We appreciate your patience, Admiral. Our world has many nations and reaching consensus takes time. We ask for an extension of 60 days to properly prepare our people for such a significant change." "Admiral," Kresh's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. However, I will grant you an additional 15 days, no more." "Thank you, Admiral." "That is most generous," she replied, hiding her disappointment. While Ambassador Peterson continued daily talks with the Zellerans, Earth prepared in secret. Underground facilities around the world worked day and night. Dr. Collins led the largest team at the lunar base, hidden from Zelleran sensors on the far side of the moon. Military leaders like Colonel Jack Ford trained special forces for space combat. Engineers converted mining ships into weapon platforms. 3 weeks passed. Ambassador Peterson continued to stall, requesting clarifications about how Earth would be governed, what resources the Empire required, and how human culture would be preserved. Admiral Kresh grew impatient. "You test my patience, human. Your questions suggest reluctance." "Not at all, Admiral," she assured him. "We simply want to be good subjects of the Empire. Proper understanding will prevent problems later." Meanwhile, on the lunar base, Dr. Collins made a breakthrough. His team had successfully adapted their experimental technology to Earth's existing nuclear arsenal. "It's ready," he told President Morgan via secure channel. "Project Phoenix can be deployed. It won't match their firepower, but it can penetrate their shields if we get close enough." President Morgan nodded grimly. "Begin the evacuation procedures. It's time for Operation Scorched Earth." As the deadline approached, humanity prepared for its most desperate gamble. The fate of the species would hang on one terrible decision: surrender, or burn their own world to deny it to their enemies. Dr. Frank Collins hadn't slept in 3 days. The underground lunar facility buzzed with activity as scientists and engineers worked around the clock. Time was running out. "How are the tests coming?" he asked Dr. Lisa Reeves, the AI specialist. She looked up from her computer with tired eyes. "The targeting systems are working better now. We can deliver the Phoenix devices with 97% accuracy." Frank nodded and moved to the next station, where Scott Harding worked on the weapons themselves. "And the yield?" Frank asked. Scott wiped sweat from his forehead. "We've increased it by 30%. One Phoenix device can now create a fire zone covering 50 square miles. "It's not enough," Frank muttered. "We need to hit them harder." On Earth, the evacuation continued in secret. People moved to underground bunkers built during the old Cold War and expanded over the years. Others went to hidden bases in remote mountain ranges. Some lucky ones were taken to the Mars colonies or smaller bases on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. They couldn't save everyone. The Zellerans watched Earth closely. Large movements of people would raise suspicion. Only critical personnel and a sample of the general population could be saved. President Morgan hadn't left the Emergency Command Center in weeks. She received hourly updates from around the world as humanity prepared for its most desperate act. "The lunar facility reports Phoenix is ready for deployment," reported General Harris. "We've loaded devices on all available ships." "And the stealth transports?" the president asked. "The last ones leave tonight. After that, we'll have moved about 8% of Earth's population off-world." President Morgan closed her eyes briefly. "So few." "It's all we could manage without the Zellerans noticing," the general said quietly. "And the rest?" "The underground bunkers can hold another 12%. The others—" He didn't finish. The president stood and walked to the window. The Zelleran ship hung in the sky above Washington, D.C., a constant reminder of their situation. "Begin the final phase," she ordered, "and may God forgive us for what we're about to do." Meanwhile, Ambassador Peterson continued her daily meetings with Admiral Kresh. The Zelleran was growing visibly impatient. "Your extended time is nearly gone, Ambassador," he said. "Yet I see no preparations for your surrender." Diane kept her face calm despite her racing heart. There are many details to arrange, Admiral. Earth has never united under one government. Before. Your internal problems do not concern the Empire, Kresh snapped. Perhaps a demonstration of our power would help your leaders decide more quickly. That won't be necessary, she said quickly. We will have our answer by the deadline. As the ambassador returned to Earth, Colonel Jack Ford prepared his hidden fleet in the asteroid belt. 20 ships, each carrying multiple Phoenix devices, waited for his command. All ships report ready, sir, his communications officer said. Good. Maintain stealth protocols until the signal comes, Jack ordered. We'll only get one shot at this. On Earth, Michelle Grant, an intelligence officer, prepared for her most dangerous mission. She had spent weeks studying the Zilorans, learning their movements and patterns. Tonight she would infiltrate one of their scout ships to gather final intelligence before the attack. She slipped past the alien guards using a prototype stealth suit developed from the recovered technology. Inside the ship she downloaded crucial data from their computers. What she found changed everything. The Zilorans are fighting wars on 3 other fronts, she reported after her return. This isn't their main fleet at all. It's just a containment, forced to secure this region while they deal with bigger threats. President Morgan studied the information. So they're stretched thin. That's why they wanted a quick surrender, rather than a fight. Exactly. They don't have the resources for a prolonged battle here. Then our plan might work even better than we hoped, the president said. Send the final order to Dr. Collins. Operation Scorched Earth begins tomorrow. On the lunar base, Frank received the message. He gathered his team for one final meeting. This is it, he told them. In 24 hours, we either save humanity or lose everything. Each of you knows your role. I'm proud of what we've accomplished here. Lisa Reeves spoke up. What about the people still on Earth? The ones who couldn't be evacuated? Frank's face darkened. The bunkers are designed to withstand the initial firestorm. Once the Zilorans are defeated, survivors can be rescued. And if we fail? Someone asked. Then humanity still survives on Mars and the outer colonies, Frank answered. Sometimes survival requires terrible sacrifices. The room fell silent as each person considered the weight of their actions. Back on Earth, the final hours ticked down. President Morgan addressed the hidden command staff. Tomorrow, we give the Zilorans our answer. Not with words, but with fire. Earth as we know it will be gone, but humanity will survive. The Empire thought they found an easy conquest. Instead, they found a species willing to burn their own home, rather than live as slaves. She looked at each person in the room. Some will call what we're about to do monstrous, perhaps it is, but we do it so our children and their children will be free. In orbit, Admiral Kresh prepared his forces for the expected surrender. Landing, ships stood ready to deploy occupation forces. Mining equipment was prepared to begin extracting Earth's resources. The Ziloran Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds this way. None had ever seriously resisted once they saw the power of the Imperial fleet. These humans would be no different. How wrong he was. As the deadline arrived, Ambassador Peterson requested one final meeting aboard the flagship. She carried a small box. Admiral, I bring Earth's formal response to your ultimatum, she said. Placing the box on the table between them, Kresh's eyes blinked in their strange pattern. You have chosen wisely, Ambassador. The Empire will be a fair master to compliant servants. Actually, Diane said, her voice steady, we chose freedom. She opened the box, revealing a small device with a blinking red light. What is this? Kresh demanded. A message, she replied. From humanity to the Ziloran Empire. At that moment, throughout the solar system, humanity's plan began. Colonel Ford's hidden fleet emerged from the asteroid belt, moving not toward the Ziloran ships but toward Earth itself. The Phoenix devices were ready. Earth was about to burn. Admiral Kresh stared at the small device in the box. His 6 eyes blinked rapidly. What have you done? He demanded. Ambassador Peterson stepped back. I suggest you look at your sensors, Admiral. Alarms began to sound throughout the Ziloran flagship. Officers rushed to their stations calling out reports in their clicking language. Human ships detected approaching Earth, one officer reported. They appear to be on attack vectors. Kresh turned to the ambassador, rage twisting his alien features. You dare to attack us? Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. We're not attacking your ships, Diane said calmly. We're attacking Earth. Confusion replaced the Admiral's anger. You would attack your own world? This is madness. On the bridge of his ship Defiance, Colonel Jack Ford gave the final order. All vessels deploy Phoenix devices. Target pattern Alpha. 20 ships released their deadly cargo. The small missile-like devices entered Earth's atmosphere at precisely calculated points around the globe. In the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Frank Collins and his team monitored the deployment. First wave entering atmosphere now, reported Lisa Reeves. All devices functioning normally. Frank nodded grimly. Activate them. Lisa pressed a series of commands. On her screen, green dots representing the Phoenix devices turned red as they activated. On Earth, the devices detonated high in the atmosphere. But these weren't ordinary explosions. Each Phoenix device released a special energy that caused oxygen to ignite. The effect spread rapidly, creating massive firestorms that raced across continents. From space, it looked as if Earth itself had caught fire. Admiral Kresh watched in horror as the blue planet began to burn. "Stop this insanity!" he shouted at Ambassador Peterson. "You're destroying your own world." "We're denying it to you," she replied. "Humans would rather burn our home than live as slaves." The Zelleran landing ships, already in Earth's atmosphere to begin the occupation, were caught in the spreading firestorms. Their shields, designed to stop weapons, couldn't protect them from the intense heat. One by one, they fell from the sky. "Second, wave ready," reported Scott Harding in the lunar base. "Targeting remaining atmosphere gaps." "Deploy," ordered Frank. More Phoenix devices entered Earth's atmosphere, igniting new firestorms where the first wave had missed. Soon the entire planet was covered in fire. In orbit, the Zelleran ships moved to attack position. They fired energy weapons at the human vessels, destroying several immediately, but Colonel Ford had anticipated this. All ships, execute Sunburst. Maneuver. His remaining vessels split into smaller groups, moving at high speed toward the 7 Zelleran capital ships. These weren't attacks meant to destroy the alien vessels. They were suicide runs. Each human ship carried a single special Phoenix device. These were different from those used on Earth. They were designed to penetrate Zelleran shields through sheer proximity. "For Earth," Jack whispered, as his ship, the Defiance, headed straight for Admiral Kresh's flagship. On the Zelleran bridge, officers shouted warnings. Human vessel approaching at high speed. Impact in 10 seconds. Admiral Kresh turned to Ambassador Peterson. "Your ships will die for nothing." "Not for nothing," she answered. "For everything." The Defiance struck the flagship's shields and exploded. The special Phoenix device detonated, creating an energy surge that overloaded the shield generators. Sections of the massive alien ship went dark as systems failed. Similar scenes played out across Earth's orbit, as human ships sacrificed themselves to damage the Zelleran fleet. In the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Morgan watched the battle unfold on her screens. Earth burned above them, the atmosphere itself on fire. Zelleran ships listed in orbit, damaged but not destroyed. "Status report," she demanded. "Firestorm coverage at 98%, reported General Harris. Surface temperature exceeding 1,000 degrees in most regions. Celoran landing forces? Completely destroyed. Their remaining capital ships are damaged but operational." The Contra President nodded. "And our people?" "Bunkers are holding for now. Mars colonies and outer bases report normal operations. They haven't been detected." "Casualties?" she asked quietly. General Harris couldn't meet her eyes. "Estimated at 5 billion and rising." President Morgan closed her eyes briefly. The weight of those lives would be with her forever. "Send the message to all surviving outposts," she ordered. "Operation Scorched Earth successful. Begin Phase 2. On the Zelleran flagship, systems were slowly coming back online. Admiral Kresh surveyed the damage reports with growing rage. 3 of his 7 capital ships were severely damaged. The others had minor systems failures. All landing craft were destroyed, and Earth, the prize they had come to claim, burned below them. He turned to where Ambassador Peterson had been standing, but she was gone. During the confusion, she had escaped in a small pod, heading for the moon. "Find her," he ordered. "Find all surviving humans." His second-in-command approached cautiously. "Admiral, sensors detect underground structures on the planet. Some humans may have survived in bunkers." "Target them," Kresh snapped. "Destroy every last one. Our weapons systems are still rebooting. It will take time." Kresh slammed his 4 fists on the control panel. "I want this species exterminated. They are too dangerous to live." As the Zelleran ships struggled to restore their systems, Ambassador Peterson's pod reached the lunar base. She was rushed to the command center where Dr. Collins waited. "It worked," she told him. "The fleet is damaged. Earth is burning. The landing forces are destroyed." Frank nodded. "But at what cost?" "The only cost that mattered," Diane answered. "Our freedom. The bunkers won't hold forever," Lisa Reeves pointed out. "The Zellerans will find them eventually." "That's why we need to move quickly," said Frank. "How soon can the Mars forces begin the counterattack?" "General Ford reports they'll be ready in 3 days," Lisa replied. Frank looked at the burning Earth on his monitor. The beautiful blue planet was now wrapped in orange flames. "The Zellerans think they've won. They think we've sacrificed our world and doomed ourselves. They don't understand humans yet," Ambassador Peterson said quietly. "But they will." 6 months had passed since Earth burned. Admiral Kresh stood before the Imperial Council on the Zelleran homeworld, his head bowed in shame. "You failed," said Emperor Vex, his voice cold. "One primitive world, and you failed to conquer it." "Majesty, these humans are unlike any species we have encountered," Kresh replied. "They destroyed their own planet rather than surrender." The Emperor's 6 eyes narrowed. "And now?" "They continue to resist. Small groups attack our supply lines from hidden bases in their solar system. We've lost 12 ships in the past month, alone." Another council member spoke. "The loss of resources is concerning. We needed Earth's minerals for the Eastern campaign. These humans must be exterminated," the Emperor declared. "They are too dangerous to exist." Kresh nodded. "I have requested additional ships to search the moons and asteroids where they might be hiding." "Denied," said the Emperor. "We cannot spare ships from other fronts. The Ordani rebellion grows stronger, and the next collective threatens our core systems." "Then how am I to destroy them?" Kresh asked. "That is your problem, Admiral. Solve it, or your family will pay the price of your failure." Meanwhile, in the secret base beneath the surface of Mars, the remains of Earth's military leadership gathered. Colonel Jack Ford, now promoted to general, had survived his suicide run by escaping in a pod at the last second. His face bore burn scars from his narrow escape. "The Zelleran patrols have increased near Jupiter," he reported. "They suspect we have bases on the moons there." President Morgan nodded. Her office was a simple room carved from Martian rock. "Do they know about this base?" "No. Our shielding technology keeps us hidden," Jack assured her. "Thanks to Dr. Collins and his team." Frank Collins entered the room, followed by Lisa Reeves. Both looked tired but determined. "Speaking of the doctor," President Morgan said, "what progress have you made?" Frank activated a holographic display. "We've improved the Phoenix technology. The new devices are smaller but more powerful. And we've integrated them into ships built in the asteroid belt." "How many ships do we have now?" asked Jack. 43, Lisa answered, "hidden throughout the system. We've also made contact with the mining colonies on Saturn's moons. They're building more." President Morgan studied the display. "It's not enough to challenge the Empire directly." "We don't need to," said Frank. "Not yet. We've learned something important from studying captured Zelleran technology." He adjusted the display to show the galaxy. "The Empire is fighting wars. On 3 fronts. Their forces are stretched thin. That's why they only sent 7 ships to Earth." "So we continue with guerrilla tactics?" Jack asked. For now, Frank agreed. But we're also developing something new. He hesitated, then continued. We've figured out how their faster-than-light drives work. The room fell silent. You mean we can leave the solar system? President Morgan asked finally. Potentially, Lisa said. We're testing a prototype now. Jack leaned forward. If this works, we could take the fight to them instead of hiding. Exactly, said Frank. And we have another advantage. Captain Martinez? Olivia Martinez stepped forward. She was young for her rank, but had proven herself in several daring raids against Zelleran outposts. We've made contact with other species conquered by the Empire, she reported. Many have been waiting for an opportunity to rebel. They just needed someone to show it was possible. President Morgan stood and walked to the window that overlooked the underground city. 10,000 people lived here now, all that remained of Earth's leadership and key personnel. Similar bases existed on Europa, Titan, and throughout the asteroid belt. So we're not alone, she said quietly. No, Madam President, Olivia replied. The Ordani have already begun their rebellion. The next collective fights on another front. If we coordinate our efforts, the Empire will be fighting on 4 fronts. Jack studied the galactic map. They still have more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. But they lack something we have, Frank said. Desperation. We have nothing left to lose. At that moment, alarms sounded throughout the base. Red lights flashed in the command center. Report, Jack ordered. A communications officer responded immediately. Zelleran fleet detected entering Mars orbit. 50 ships, sir. How did they find us? President Morgan demanded. Unknown, Madam President, but they're deploying landing craft. They'll reach the surface in minutes. Frank turned to Lisa. The prototype, is it ready? She nodded. Barely. We haven't tested it in actual space. It's our only chance, he said. Get everyone to the evacuation ships. Jack activated the base-wide communication system. All personnel, this is General Ford. Evacuation Protocol Alpha. This is not a drill. Proceed to your assigned ships immediately. Throughout the base, people grabbed emergency packs and moved quickly to the massive underground hangar. 20 large ships waited there, each capable of carrying 500 people. What about our defenses? Asked President Morgan. They'll buy us time, Jack replied. But we can't win a direct fight, not here. Frank added. The base has been prepared for this. Once everyone is evacuated, we'll trigger the collapse charges. The Zellerans will find nothing but rubble. Orbit Admiral Kresh watched as his ships surrounded the red planet. After months of searching, they had finally detected energy signatures beneath the Martian surface. Prepare all weapons, he ordered. I want the entire area sterilized. Landing craft approaching surface now, Admiral, reported his second-in-command. Kresh's eyes blinked in satisfaction. Soon we will end this human problem forever. Below, in the Martian base, evacuations continued with practiced efficiency. The first ships were already filled and ready to launch through hidden exits. Prototype drive installed on lead ship, Lisa reported. If it works, we can all escape through the jump point it creates. And if it doesn't? Jack asked quietly. Then at least some of us will escape in the conventional ships, she replied. The rest will need to fight. President Morgan boarded the lead ship with Frank, Lisa, and key scientific personnel. Jack and Olivia coordinated the loading of the remaining vessels. Zelleran forces have landed, a security officer reported. They're cutting through the outer defenses. How much more time do we need? Jack asked. 5 minutes for the last ship, Olivia answered. Jack nodded. I'll give you those minutes. Get everyone out. He turned to a group of volunteers who had stayed behind. It's time. Defensive positions. As the evacuation ships prepared to launch, Jack and his fighters moved to confront the Zelleran forces breaching the base. The battle for Mars had begun. 3 years had passed since the escape from Mars. The human fleet had grown stronger. What began as 20 evacuation ships had become a force of over 200 vessels. Some were built in hidden shipyards in distant asteroid belts. Others were captured from the Zelleran Empire. General Jack Ford stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, the largest human warship ever built. His face, still scarred from battles past, was set in grim determination. "Status report," he ordered. "All ships in position, sir," replied his second-in-command. "The Ordani and Nex fleets are standing by. Jump drives are charged and ready." Jack nodded. "And the new weapons?" "The atmospheric ignition bombs are loaded on all strike ships. Dr. Collins reports they're 3 times more powerful than the original Phoenix devices." This was the moment they had planned for since Earth burned. The humans were no longer running. Today they would take the fight to the heart of the Zelleran Empire. In her quarters, President Morgan reviewed the final plans with Ambassador Peterson and Dr. Collins. "Are we certain this will work?" the President asked. Frank nodded. "The bombs will ignite the atmospheres of the target worlds just like they did on Earth. The difference is we're giving the Zellerans a choice Earth never had. Surrender or burn," Diane Peterson said quietly. "Exactly," Frank confirmed. "We'll demonstrate on one uninhabited moon first, show them what we can do, then offer terms." President Morgan looked at the display showing their fleet. It was impressive, but tiny compared to the full might of the Empire. "And if they refuse?" she asked. "Then we burn their core worlds one by one," Frank answered. "Until they understand what happens when you threaten humanity." The President stood. "Launch the attack." On the bridge of the Vengeance, Jack received the order. "All ships prepare for jump," he commanded. "Target, Zalora Prime System." The human fleet, joined by ships from the Ordani Rebels and Nex Collective, activated their jump drives. Space itself seemed to fold around them, creating artificial wormholes. In an instant, the fleet vanished from their hiding place in a distant nebula. They reappeared at the edge of the Zalora Prime System, home to the Imperial capital and 5 heavily populated worlds. Alarms blared across the Zaloran defense fleet. They had never expected an attack here in the heart of their territory. "Unknown fleet detected," a Zaloran officer reported to the Imperial command. "Multiple species signatures, including human." Emperor Vex rose from his throne in shock. "Impossible. How did they reach our homeworld?" Admiral Kresh, recently recalled from the failed Earth campaign, could only stare at the tactical display in disbelief. The human-led fleet moved with precision, bypassing the outer defense perimeters with their superior jump technology. One group of ships broke off and headed for an uninhabited moon orbiting the 5th planet. "What are they doing?" the Emperor demanded. "Unknown, Your Majesty," Kresh replied. "They're not attacking our ships or defense stations. On the moon's surface, automated probes planted the first atmospheric ignition bomb. Once deployed, the human ships retreated to a safe distance. Demonstration package deployed," reported Lisa Reeves aboard the Vengeance. "Detonation in 30 seconds. Jack opened a communication channel to Captain Olivia Martinez's ship. "Once the demonstration is complete, deliver our message to the Imperial Palace." "Understood, General," Olivia replied. Her ship, the Swift Justice, was positioned to broadcast directly to the Zelleran leadership. The bomb detonated. Despite the moon's thin atmosphere, the effect was dramatic. A wave of fire spread across the surface, igniting gases and turning the barren world into a miniature sun. In the Imperial Palace, silence fell as they watched the moon burn. "Now," Jack ordered. Olivia's face appeared on screens throughout the Zelleran capital. "People of the Zelleran Empire, I am Captain Olivia Martinez of Earth. 3 years ago, your forces demanded our surrender. We refused. You thought us weak because we destroyed our own world rather than submit." She paused, her expression hard. "You were wrong. We were not weak. We were determined. And now we bring that same determination to your doorstep." The transmission showed images of the burning moon, followed by footage of Earth's firestorm. "We have placed atmospheric ignition bombs on each of your core worlds," Olivia continued. "As you have seen, they work quite effectively. Your fleets cannot stop all of our ships, your shields cannot stop our weapons." In the Imperial command, Emperor Vex's rage grew. "Destroy them, launch all ships." But Admiral Kresh hesitated. "Your Majesty, if what they say is true, we will not be threatened by primitives," the Emperor shouted. Olivia's message continued. We offer you the choice you never gave us. Surrender, dissolve your empire, free the worlds you've enslaved, or watch your planets burn, one by one. She's bluffing, the Emperor insisted. They don't have the power to threaten all our worlds. Admiral, Kresh studied the tactical display. The combined fleet was smaller than their defense forces, but they had somehow developed technology that allowed them to bypass Imperial defenses. And that demonstration on the moon. Your Majesty, he said carefully, I've fought these humans. They destroyed their own homeworld without hesitation. I believe they will do exactly as they threaten. Before the Emperor could respond, alarms sounded again. Multiple jump signatures detected. An officer called out. They're appearing in orbit around all 5 core worlds. Small, fast human ships had bypassed the defense fleet, positioning themselves in low orbit around each Zelleran planet. You have 1 hour to decide, Olivia's transmission concluded. Surrender or burn, the choice is yours. On the Vengeance, Jack watched as the Zelleran fleet scrambled to respond. Some ships moved to defend the homeworld. Others gave chase to the human strike vessels. They won't catch them in time, Lisa said. Jack nodded. Now we wait. 58. Minutes later, a transmission came from the Imperial Palace. Emperor Vex appeared on screen, his expression unreadable. We will discuss terms, he said simply. Jack exchanged glances with President Morgan, who had joined him on the bridge. A wise decision, she replied. Ambassador Peterson will meet with your representatives to arrange the surrender. As the transmission ended, a cheer went through the human fleet. After years of hiding and fighting, they had forced the mighty Zelleran Empire to its knees. Jack didn't join the celebration. He looked at an image of Earth, still burning after all this time. A monument to what humans would sacrifice for freedom. Was it worth it? Lisa asked quietly, standing beside him. Ask me when we've rebuilt, he answered. When humans have a home again. President Morgan approached them. We'll never forget Earth. But today we've ensured that humanity has a future. Together they watched as Ambassador Peterson's shuttle departed for the Imperial Palace. The war was ending. The rebuilding would soon begin. Humanity had faced extinction and responded with fire. Now they would lead a new alliance of free worlds, born from the ashes of Earth and the ruins of an empire that learned too late. Never threaten, a species willing to burn their own world to ash.